11 years ago, we had Super Bowl 49 with the New England Patriots versus the Seattle Seahawks. And in this game, there was a very traumatic injury that happened to one of the Seattle Seahawks defensive players, Jeremy Lane. With Super Bowl 60 on their rise, and I think it'll be appropriate for us to go over exactly what happened to Jeremy Lane's injury on this Throwback Thursday during Super Bowl 49, especially with both the same teams representing both the conferences in this upcoming Super Bowl. Today, we're going to go over the anatomy behind this injury. We're going to go over the mechanism of this injury, the risk for this type of injury, as well as his recovery timeline for Jeremy Lane to get back and play football for the Seattle Seahawks. So we start back when the play originally happened. We have Tom Brady in the red zone throwing a pick to Jeremy Lane. Funny enough, this actually was his first interception in his NFL career. And then as he is tackled by Julian Edelman there, you see his left arm kind of go very awkwardly onto the ground. This is when the injury really did happen. And we're going to break down what's exactly going on in this image here. As we continue to play this video here, we see that arm go into an extreme amount of hyperextension. As you see, that arm is trying to brace itself. It's just unable to do it due to a lot of key components that we're going to go over. Now, this angle was not part of the video here, but it is probably the best angle of exactly what's going on. So this is a classic mechanism of a Fuchs injury. A Fuchs is an acronym for fallen on an outstretched hand. So as we see here with Jeremy Lane, he is trying to brace himself with this left arm, and you can see just how deformed it becomes with all of his weight and pressure and momentum that is happening in this play. That elbow is locked in extension too, and we saw through that video there was a significant amount of hyperextension, putting more stress throughout that entirety of that joint and that forearm. If we do go back to the video here, we do see a significant amount of rotational stress as well on Jeremy Lane as he's trying to brace himself. This rotational stress is providing more of a torsional stress, specifically through that forearm that's going to be complementing that fracture that he did sustain. This was a perfect storm and combination for Jeremy Lane to sustain a deformity. Now with that elbow being in a locked in position into more of that extension and then hyperextension through the video, as well as this arm being into that Fuchs mechanism where it's just completely putting all that weight through that wrist and hand, that is transmitting all of that force through the ground up towards the forearm and towards the elbow, creating that compound fracture that what he did sustain on this play here. Here is our anatomical model. We're just going to review a few key points for Jeremy Lane's injury. We have two key bones that make up our forearm. We have our radius, which is seen right here, more in the outer portion of the forearm or thumb side. And then we also have our ulna, seen more in the inner portion. Both of these bones come more distally and create the wrist, with these smaller carpal bones that are more prominent in the wrist, but both help with facilitating movement. And then more proximally, we do have the radius and ulna interacting with the humerus, creating both our humeroradial joint as well as our humeroulnar joint, both of which are important for elbow motions, including our elbow flexion and extension. To kind of visually describe what exactly happened to both the radius and ulna, both were compressed with those certain motions that Jeremy Lane did sustain, leading to more of a compound fracture. Now, a compound fracture is when that bone is going to be pierced through the skin. Immediately after the injury happened, medical staff rushed to the scene and applied an air cast, just making sure the area that had the compound fracture was compressed and making sure that they were minimizing the risk for infection for Jeremy Lane. The irony of this injury was that Jeremy Lane actually tore his ACL on this same play here. With the risk of infection and the severity of the compound injury with his forearm, he didn't even realize. It later came to him when his knee buckled or gave out randomly, which led to him seeking for medical attention and getting an MRI, confirming that he actually did tear his ACL. Now, with recovery for Jeremy Lane, he did immediately have surgery for his compound fracture in his forearm. This most likely was an open reduction internal fixation. He unfortunately had to undergo a few more surgeries in that forearm due to the fact of the risk of infection that he did sustain throughout his recovery time. He was initially on the PUP list in the beginning of the 2015 NFL season, but then eventually came back and returned to practice in November, around 9 months after when the injury did happen. This forearm injury of Jeremy Lane might have been one of the worst and maybe most severe injuries on a stage like the Super Bowl in most recent years. Hope you guys did enjoy this video for Throwback Thursday. I hope you found it informative, and hope you learned a little bit about Jeremy Lane's injury, his anatomy behind the injury, the mechanism, as well as his recovery timeline. Thank you again so much for watching, and see you in the next one.